That is wrong. What an about face. It's not unlike Howard Stern. I mean, talk about a transition. On Tuesday, he conducted an interview with Kamala Harris that was so simpering and feminine, I got my period while listening to it. Make sense?
Well, I know some of them, and like Howard, I was on Howard Stern's show as much as anybody, and
yeah.
he was great at that time, and then he went woke.
Yeah.
And since he's gone woke, his ratings have gone down the tube.
Greg Gutfeld and Donald Trump just demolished Howard Stern in a roast so vicious that his old soundboard would punch the mute button. From shock jock icon to sanitized celebrity lapdog, they rip apart Stern's decline from fearless to with harsh accuracy and comic honesty, no filter, no mercy, simply a full-throttle demolition of a man who traded dissent for prominence. If Stern previously commanded the airwaves, this roast reveals he's now just background noise in his kingdom.
What's funny, though, is that Stern actually thought that was a compliment. Stern has become such a wussified sycophant, he doesn't realize that telling Kamala that he'd vote for a wall is telling her that he knows she's as dumb as one.
Went anti-Trump for a couple of reasons, but I was on his show a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, he has a best of. Did you ever see the best of Howard Stern? I don't want to promote it necessarily, but and I was there for just about all of them. The best of. We had good shows. It was good, but he's changed, and he doesn't do the ratings anymore.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to. He's almost finished.
Greg Gutfeld came in hot, like a meteor with a coffee addiction and no respect for sacred cows. His target, Howard Stern, once a firebrand, a renegade, the king of all things inappropriate, now a sanitized, therapy-saturated echo of his former self, preserved in corporate amber and flinching at the sound of his past. And Greg was licking his chops.
We're back. Now remember, Stern used to throw bologna slices at strippers' butts. With axie, I might add. Now he's worried the possible leader of the free world can't handle his verbal foot rub. I wonder if he used to get this nervous for the strippers, or he'd spank them on their bare asses with a dead fish.
He began by drawing a picture of Howard as the world's oldest punk rocker, still attempting to convince people he's dangerous while wearing a cardigan and sipping herbal tea. The guy who formerly made headlines for shock value now makes appearances on discussion shows, sounding like he's auditioning for NPR. Greg grinned at the idea that Howard had gone from shaking cages to arranging throw pillows. The transformation was so dramatic, so ridiculous, that Gutfeld compared it to seeing a lion who suddenly decided tofu was more pleasurable than fresh flesh.
You should hear what keeps him up at night.
What keeps me up at night? I don't understand how my fellow Americans, I don't even understand how this election is close. And yes, I'm voting for you, but I would also vote for that wall over there.
Well, he's half right. We do need a wall. To keep out gang members and all dealers, human traffickers, and Anna Navarro.
He ridiculed Howard's makeover into a politically correct custodian of elite thought. The man who built his fortune on breaking rules, insulting authority, and pushing the line so far it looped around the building was suddenly the moral hall monitor, waving his finger at individuals who still had the bravery to say what they thought. Gutfeld marveled at the duplicity, the amazing swing from outlaw to lecture circuit favorite, where Howard now asked everyone to believe that being offended was honorable and resistance was unpleasant. Greg didn't hold back on the cringeworthy progression, the wild hair, the shades, the lifelong persona of anti-establishment defiance. It was everything still there physically, but the substance had evaporated.
I don't want you being made fun of.
Oh my God.
There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
So a guy who's supposed to be funny for a living now claims her candidacy is too important to joke about. This is a guy who once joked right after the Columbine massacre, Hitler should have raped the students before killing them. Not that I like that Stern, but this pendulum swing.
Now, it was cosplay. Howard looked like a rock star, but talked like a librarian who just came back from a mindfulness retreat. Gutfeld termed it a show without the joke, a circus with no clowns, just a melancholy mime with a cancellation form. He mocked Howard's interviews to how The rough edge has dulled into gently lighted, approval-hungry celebrity therapy sessions.
Pressure. But the fact that he hasn't left his house in 2 years means that his views are BS. He was in a happy supposed lockdown with everything. Mansion on the beach, limitless options for food and entertainment. That's not real life. That's a tour all-inclusive vacation at Sandals Royal Barbados, which is impossible for everyone else in lockdown, including, especially, his listeners. Hell, he was doing his show from home.
The man who previously grilled Alistairs with ludicrous runchy questions now whispered affirmations and talked about safe spaces like he was conducting a college diversity course. Greg pointed out that Stern hadn't evolved. He'd surrendered. He didn't change the system. He joined it, built a condo inside it, and started charging rent. Then followed the cultural graveling. Gutfeld slammed at how Stern now seemed to crave acceptance from the very establishment he previously mocked. Howard used to be the person who set fire to the elite. The message used to be revolt.
In Stern's previous career that could withstand this modern witch hunt that he now embraces. So this is a form of restitution. Maybe he says, if I'm woke too, the crocodile will eat last, but they always do eat. But I get it. He flipped from populist to elitist because now he's with elitists. He's living in the Hamptons. What would the Stern of now think of the Stern of before?
Now, it was a market-tested vulnerability. Now, Trump didn't require notes. He didn't need a warm-up. He came in like a sledgehammer to a glass ego. To him, Howard Stern was not only disappointing, he was the definition of weak. Trump had known Howard back in the wild days when he was dangerous, unpredictable, and a true media force. But now Howard was a lapdog, pretending to be a lion. A tragic reminder of what happens when celebrity outruns courage.
Well, it is weird because he criticizes Trump for dividing the country, and then he says he hates his supporters. So he's not learning his own analysis. I think he might have turned into the thing he hated. He needs to go back and watch the movie Private Parts and focus on how he portrayed Don Imus, because he's kind of turned into Don Imus.
Trump questioned the change from shock jock to celebrity therapist. He said it was like witnessing a WWE villain suddenly try out for a Hallmark Christmas movie. He tore into Howard's incessant self-reflection, criticizing how the guy who once lived for controversy now lived to avoid it. The genuineness was gone, replaced with a desperate hold to fame through safety and flattery. He zoomed in on it like a missile, not the style. He respected the devotion to anarchy, but the symbolism. That wild, untamed man used to represent something. It shouted independence, edge, disobedience. Now, it was a museum display, a relic from a period Howard no longer had the bravery to represent.
Explanation. This is Stern's self-imposed penance for subjugating women to demoralizing stunts, capitalizing on desperate females thirsting for attention, even if from an oily paddle striking their bare asses. True, much of Stern's transformation is based mainly on a delusional hatred for Trump, but it's also coming from a bottomless hatred for himself. It is.
Trump laughed that Howard had become his own wax figure, standing stationary while the world passed by with headphones and a shorter attention span. He attacked Howard's fixation with celebrity approbation, claiming the man had surrendered his identity for party invitations and Instagram nods. The guy who had bragged about never selling out had converted his entire act into a clearance rack of popular virtue signals. Trump then zoomed out. Howard Stern, in his view, was the greatest illustration of what happens when the culture convinces someone that comfort is better than truth. Howard didn't change because he wanted to.
Stern got even more pathetic, wondering how she doesn't nap.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country.
Hold on. I need a minute.
2. He changed because he was terrified, scared of losing fans, scared of offending the wrong people, scared of becoming a headline on the wrong bloggy. He completed his roast with a reminder. The only difference, an iPod doesn't pretend to be bold. And just like that, Howard Stern's legacy lay in ashes, blazing not from hate, but from disappointment. The king of all media dethroned not by scandal or failure, but by softness, cowardice, and an insatiable craving for favor. He circled back like a shark that had sniffed a little more blood in the sea. He laughed that the same listeners who formerly tuned in faithfully now couldn't tell you if Stern was still on the air or just babbling in his living room into an antique microphone.
Incredibly brave to take this stance after you've made $300, $400 not being woke, right? Loving Donald Trump, exploiting the mentally ill, wearing blackface. Look at the crop of woke comics, whether it's Stern, Jimmy Kimmel, his BFF, Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, Ian Black. What do they all have in common? They wore blackface. And then
Trump portrayed the picture of a fading star clinging to a brand that outgrew him like an old magician, still attempting to extract rabbits from a hat long after the audience left for TikTok. Trump didn't miss the irony. Howard built his empire on being honest, raw, daring. Yet now he tiptoed through interviews like he was walking barefoot across a landmine field of cancel culture. The person who used to attack celebrities suddenly apologized for calling someone short 20 years ago. Trump said the contrast wasn't just hilarious, it was tragic. A lion terrified of its own roar. Gut re-entered with a tone of amused skepticism. To him, Stern's fall from grace wasn't a nosedive. It was a smooth landing into mediocrity. A previously explosive broadcaster, now concerned with image management, clout chasing, and obtaining the approval of people who once thought he was dangerous. Then he went after the podcast interviews again. Greg noted out how looked more concerned in comforting guests than startling them. They were mourning him, lamenting the loss of the voice that once worried elites, horrified censors, and allowed outsiders a place to laugh. What remained was a shell, a filtered echo, clinging to relevance with gentle words and safe choices.